Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Russia for the first time in a couple of weeks. So for those of you watching over there, Здравствуйте, как вас дела, пожалуйста, welcome. So for this one we are going to return to a brewery who I've reviewed 5 or so beers from already, and this is one that I'm very curious about. So for this review then we're going to go to St. Petersburg, Sankt-Peterburg, and we're having a look at another beer from AF Brew. This one is the Big Black Mash, and they're describing this as a butterscotch Imperial Stout. It comes in at 10% ABV, and I guess that generally you could call this one another pastry stout, but yeah, I think this one will be really quite nice. I've had some very good beers from AF Brew before. That started with the Fear of the Zafir. That was a Lervig collaboration, and that was the very first one. Then I had the Trinity in Black, which they brewed with Zagovor and with Puasta in Estonia. That was a really nice beer. I think that was an Imperial Porter rather than a stout, right enough. Then I had the Tsar Cockerel, which was a collaboration with Stigberg. It's up in Gothenburg. And quite recently we had the Red Drum Red Imperial IPA, which was good but not in the best condition. I think it'd been sitting in the warehouse too long. And then we had the Old Sparky, which was a lovely sort of West Coast style triple IPA. They came into Systembolaget about a month or so ago actually, but this one was released on the 5th of May 2020 through the Tillfällig Sortiment, small partiers, whatever you want to call it, here in Sweden. So very curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's another good beer. As I've told you before, my encounters with Russian craft beer have always been very positive. My first encounter was back in 2016 when Malmö Brewing Company hosted a Russian beer festival, and I was blown away by the quality, and it was quite a long time until I was able to review some Russian beers for you again, but hopefully I can get over there and have a visit at some point in the fairly near future. That's something that is definitely on the cards, and my cousin and I are trying to decide a time and plan that and go for it. So yeah, definitely something that will happen within the next couple of years. Just keep your eyes peeled actually. Russia has always been a hugely interesting country for me. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Really curious to see how this turns out. And this is my first dedicated review to this brewery that is a dark beer as well, so that also makes it a little bit exciting. But let's see how we get on with this one. I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from AF Brew before. No doubt you will see some more from these guys at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Russian beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about AF Brew then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you before, AF Brew are based in St. Petersburg, and they were founded back in 2012 by Nikita Filipov, Dmitry Buldakov and Artem Kolchakov. And these guys had previously worked for Baltika, you know, the big, conglomerate, massive Russian brewing company. But they were very interested in experimental beer. But they say that when their boss found out that they were, brewing experimental batches and things like that, there was a bit of a witch hunt for them within the company. And, because they were still working for them at the time, but they received an appointment with the CEO who told them they had to stop brewing their small batches immediately, and of course they didn't do that. But they started off as a gypsy brewery, brewing at other places around Russia before they eventually went to build their own brewery in November of 2016, or I believe it opened in November of 2016 actually. But the brewery has an on-site tap room, and they also own the Red Rum bar in the city as well. So those are the two places that you will find the AF Brew beers in St. Petersburg, and I probably will. I do want to make sure I go and film a few out and about videos there. I really would like to try some of the Russian craft beers in the tap rooms and things like that over there. But the AF in the name stands for Anti-Factory. I think this is a reference to the Russian language somehow. I speak like a little tiny little bit of Russian. I did a Russian course at uni and really enjoyed it, so I'll probably do the next one at some point soon. But they basically say that it's anti-factory, and the idea is that craft beer is an escape from the everyday kind of you know, rat race of life. That's the idea behind the name of this brewery. But as of May 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, according to Untappd, they've produced around 175 rather different kinds of beer. But I don't know how accurate that figure will be for a couple of reasons. I guess I don't know how popular Untappd would have been in Russia in the early days. That's an interesting thing to think about. So if some of you are watching from Russia, do let me know how popular the likes of Untappd and Rate Beer and things like that are with you guys, or if you have your own ratings website, because I know the Russians have, you know, VK and things. They don't use Facebook and stuff like that so much. But yeah, it'll be interesting to hear from some more Russian beer geeks watching the channel. So yeah, definitely, if you guys are watching, it would be really, really cool. But yeah, you know, the Russian beer scene, as I say, it's hugely interesting. That's all I'm really able to tell you about AF Brew for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Beer Advocate and Untappd pages and things to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. But we are starting to see more of their beers getting out there in Europe, which is obviously very, very welcome. It's always cool to try stuff from different countries. Of course, we've got so many countries here in Europe, you're always going to find something quite interesting. There's a few countries that I've not tried very much from that I need to sort out actually over the next while. But yeah, definitely awesome to have some more Russian beers for you here on the channel. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So as I told you at the start of the video, this one is a 10% Imperial Pastry Stout. It says on the side here, we are AF Brew. We started brewing unorthodox beers even before everything in our country turned craft. We've been aiming to transform our fantasy into material and desirable product, and there we are. We rose against boring and generic beers in the world around us, and in the faraway 2012, we named ourselves Anti-Factory, or AF Brew in short. We've always wanted to be a few steps ahead and lead the way to the world of new flavours and emotions. What we do is our whole existence. And AF Brew, Russian Federation, 198035, St. Petersburg. So yeah, this one should be pretty cool. This again is imported by original brand Stockholm, who, as I say, I criticised them in the last one for the state of the red rum beer that had obviously been sitting for too long, or it had been conditioned at the wrong temperature or something like that. But yeah, I think with an Imperial Stout, I think you're not going to have much bother in terms of holding on to this beer too long or whatever. But it says that this date is best before the 9th of the 1st, 2021, which for an Imperial Stout, I suppose this one does have lactose in it, so that is one of the things. But I would have thought if lactose is isolated on its own, albeit it's not in this, if lactose is on its own and it's not kind of in milk itself, then I think usually lactose can last a good bit longer than that. And when this is a 10%, this beer, you know, you probably could age this quite a bit longer than that. Not sure about that, so maybe they probably are just wanting you to drink it when they feel it's in good condition, so I understand that. But yeah, I'll let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see, I do like this, how they've got it kind of as a sort of whirlpool, if you like. I think that the artwork on this is pretty cool. But there you can see, there is the AF Anti-Factory Brew symbol on this one. And yeah, it actually does have the labels obviously been fixed for that, so it's got a 1 krona pant thing on it, so obviously this one is exclusive to Sweden. I guess maybe if it doesn't have the Norwegian one or the Danish one as well, I guess we're maybe the only country in Scandinavia that are getting this beer at the moment, which is pretty cool. Black top on the can, but yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. Oh, sparked a little bit. That's pretty damn full actually, it's pushing its way out of the can. So yeah, it's filled right to the brim. And what I will say about this as well, you should feel the weight in this can. This can is dense as shit basically. This beer is a big dense mofo. And you can see from the pour there, just look at this thing pouring. That's a monster of a beer actually. I'm tempted to lick my hands, but I don't want to do it yet because I've not tasted the beer, so unfortunately I'm just going to have to, you know, wipe it for the moment. Don't want to ruin the first taste, as I always say. But as you could see, when this beer poured, there was about a half finger of a frothy, quite dark tan head on this one, but it looks very, very nice. As you can see, the beer itself, if I put the light through this, this is basically black as night. It's pretty much as black as that can there. But yeah, there's not much light coming through this one at all. There is a teeny little bit of a sort of Coca-Cola coloured edge to it, but you know, this one is black as night. There's one or two bigger bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and you can see some very, very small ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But you know, overall, it looks pretty much as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, and I will say you're getting a hell of a lot of lovely kind of sweet brown sugary aromas out of this one as you go further forward. So yeah, this one, the aroma of this this beer, I can tell already it's going to be a beast, but in terms of its appearance, there is nothing particularly surprising about this beer, just the fact that it is so dark and dense. But I guess if you've got lactose and stuff in it, lactose can tend to make it pretty damn hazy, and you can see the head has just faded away to be a very, very thin foamy layer, and there's not much in the way of carbonation visible in this one. You can see a few bubbles just coming towards the top of the surface there, but yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. Let's look at the aroma quickly then. Oh yeah, straight away, it's pretty much exactly as you would expect from what they describe it, you know, an Imperial butterscotch stout. You know, it really does, it reminds me of Werther's Original. I'm not sure if you get those sweets in Russia. I'd be quite surprised if you did, actually. But it really reminds me of a kind of, it's very much like Thornton's Toffee, Werther's Original sort of stuff. There's a Polish fudge, that one that has the cow on it, that it really reminds me of as well. So as I say, I'm not sure how good a reference that is for the Russian people that might watch this, because I don't know how many sort of European products and things they actually get. I guess not a lot, because it's a separate trade bloc and things, the CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States. But yeah, with this one straight away, the aroma of this is very nice, because you can smell, there is a bit of a toasty, you can smell some of the roasty black malt coming out of this one, but on top of that there's a hell of a lot of very dark, treacly molasses sugar on this one. This beer's obviously had a very, very long brew. We're probably talking at least a 5 or 6 hour boil that this one would have had. That's the key way to get all these big caramelisations of the sugars. Quite often barley wines and other things, you know, they have very, very, very long boils to caramelise the sugars more. So I'm guessing with this one, with the amount of like treacle molasses type note that's coming out of this one, and it's almost quite toasted in that regard, and the amount of brown sugars that are coming out of this will be a very, very long boil Imperial Stout in my mind. So yeah, you can smell a bit of that toasty black malt in there. You can smell the big sort of treacly molasses brown sugars. There is a bit of a sweeter caramel in there. The butterscotch kind of comes out on top of that. I would guess that the butterscotch has maybe been added as a flavour essence rather than as a kind of standalone thing, because it has that typically oily kind of candied aroma to it, whereas if they'd added it sort of on its own, I think it would, if they added it as on its own rather than as a flavour essence, I think it might have turned out just a wee bit different to that. So yeah, the butterscotchy notes that you get out of this are very sweet and very, very candied. There's a little bit of an almost vanilla quality to this one, and that's the impression that the lactose will give you. There's a few woody undertones to it. You get a little bit of like a kind of hazel nutty or praline type note. There's a few nutty undertones to this beer as well. But the thing we haven't talked about as well is that you do get a bit of chocolate out of this one. So at the back of the nose you get a kind of high sort of 70-80% cocoa chocolate, that sort of darker thing, and it almost smells a little bit like a kind of charred, dusty chocolate. But then further towards the front of the nose you start to get the you really start to get some nice kind of vanilla-y sweetness out of it, which is very good. It's the more lactosey sweet notes that come out of this one, and then the sort of candied butterscotchy notes are sitting on top of that. But I will say the aroma of this beer is very, very nice, and I mean, if you've tried the likes of the dessert in a cans, I still need to try one of those actually from I've not tried many of those dessert in a cans. I forget if they're Lervig or Servicium, but there's quite a lot of these big candied stouts going around. Omnipoil, of course, were the ones who kind of kicked that off. If you like the big Omnipoil Imperial stouts, or you like the desserts in a can, the Amundsen, I'm pretty sure that's Amundsen actually. I think I've told you lies. I'm pretty sure it's Amundsen. It's not Lervig and it's not Servicium. It's Amundsen who are doing the dessert in a can series. You know, Lervig have been doing some candied stouts as well. If you like these big sweet cakey stouts that a lot of the Scandinavian brewers are doing, then you are really going to like the aroma of this. This is very, very similar, and maybe their recent collaborations with Scandinavian breweries is what's got them onto this. I'm not sure how new a beer this is, but it smells very, very nice. On the hoppy side of things, there's not too much to report on that. You get a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of grassiness, maybe a teeny bit of floral character, but in a beer like this you're not going to get much in the way of hoppiness. The fruity side of things though is quite interesting. So straight away with this one you do get a little bit of a rich kind of, you do get a little bit of that kind of plummy sharpness in there. There's definitely some kind of sort of figgy raisin. It does have a bit of that raisiny sharpness to it as well, but you've got some nice juicy figs, a little bit of that blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing. So yeah, I do wonder if maybe there's a bit of Williamette or something in here. It's got that lovely kind of berryish quality to it, I have to say, but some of that will be coming from the malts. You know, the other hops that you could use in here, for example, would be Northern Brewer from Germany, very popular in Doppelbock, and also you have Bramley's Cross, which is quite popular in English barley wine. So it could have any of those three in it, I would think, and there's probably a few others that that are possibilities for this particular style. So yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma. This one, it's got a lovely smell to it, so take a bit of time to enjoy that, but we're going to have a taste of this now and see how we get on. So this one is the Big Black Mash, an Imperial Butterscotch Stout, as they've titled it, from AF Brew in St. Petersburg over in Russia. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, na zdrowie. Cheers. That's really nice. It feels very, very clean actually, and I will say, first impression of this, it really dries out at the back of the palate, but it doesn't dry out in a very kind of ashy, sort of black malty way. It's very, it's interesting that actually, how it's got a very, it's not even grainy either. The dryness that you get at the back of the palate with this one is really interesting, because my first impression of this beer is it feels very, very wet and very clean actually, but then you just get this really dryness that goes right across the middle of the palate. It almost feels, the first thing that came to mind was, I want to say it feels a little bit rubbery, which is a really strange thing to say about a beer, but it's the dryness that you get from this beer at the end is really, really interesting. This is a very interesting concoction, this one, but I will say straight away, thumbs up to AF Brew again. These guys are a very capable brewery. And you know, if people are going to fly the flag for the Russian breweries coming out here into Europe, then AF Brew are certainly very capable. Zagovar, and you know, there's many capable breweries in Russia, but to have AF Brew and Zagovar coming out here a little bit more to open the way for more Russian breweries, I think is awesome. But I like how this goes together. This is awesome. Yeah, this is a very, very, it's a very nice beer actually. Compared to some of the other sort of pastry stouts that I've had, I find this one, it's a lot less sweet actually. It's got a good bit of sweetness to it, don't get me wrong on that, but the kind of toasty backbone that it has is quite interesting. As I say, I need to try some of these Amundsen dessert in a cans, because I've not had too many beers that have been specifically termed pastry stouts. That is a style I do need to explore a little bit more, but as a kind of regular beer, if you like, as I consider this just as an imperial stout generally, I think this is really pretty good. So yeah, if you get the chance to try this one, have a go at it. I can't remember what I paid for this. It must have been about 60 Swedish crowns or something, so yeah, it's not bad at all. So yeah, this is very nice. Let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. So with this beer then, you can feel, as I said, when you take it in, the palate dries out a little bit, and you really get this, you really do get this kind of, you know, roasty, toasty, bread crusty, almost slightly rubbery dryness. That just blankets the middle of the back of your palate. And you can feel it gets gradually drier and drier as you go further back on this one. But yeah, a lot of the sweetness that you get, it kind of dissipates, and it really, you've got this toasty kind of backbone just sitting there. The aftertaste of this beer for me is actually quite kind of simple almost, and I like how that goes together. A lot of the flavour that you get is when the liquid is actually on your tongue. That's the really interesting thing about this one. So yeah, when you take this beer in, you can feel the dryness just gradually pushes and pushes its way up, but in the middle of your palate you really get that very toasty, roasty, well-fired, high cocoa chocolate in there, you know, sort of 80-90% cocoa sort of thing, toasted and just blasted basically. But then as you move into the centre of your palate, as you move further forward, the chocolate gradually evolves to be a little bit more like a kind of milky chocolate. You definitely get the lactose, just almost, as I always say, you divide the tongue into thirds. The back third of this one is very roasty and toasty. The middle third is where you're getting the kind of boozy part of the beer coming out. When you reach the front of that second third, that's where you get the kind of the sort of lactosey creaminess. You can feel the sweetness there just on the border with the fruity part of the palate. And that's nice how that kind of goes together. This beer, it's not the most complex of Imperial Stouts that I've come across, but it's just really well done, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, sometimes simplicity works very, very well, and I think in this case, well, it's not the most simple of Imperial Stouts you're going to come across either. It's somewhere in the middle. The main thing to take away from this is that it is just a very nicely done beer, this. So again, you know, thumbs up to AF Brew for this one. I like it. So if you go to the front corners of your palate and then move in, you will detect a few little woody undertones, and if you go to the very centre of your palate and move forward, you can feel some of the nice nutty things coming out of this too, which is great. I really like how that side of the beer all kind of conjoins together. It's very, very nice in that regard. But as I say, it gets drier. The more and more you drink of this, the drier it gets at the back of the palate, which is quite interesting. So yeah, as I say, in the middle of the palate, if we focus on the kind of middle third of the tongue now, as I say, you get some of that dark, toasty, almost well-fired type chocolatey note there, and on top of that you get the brown sugars. You can really feel the treacle and molasses in there, sort of forming the base of the boozy part of the beer. Then gradually, as you move further towards the centre, it gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter, and you basically get a straight up caramel in the very, very centre of your palate. And then as you move further out from that, it's kind of interesting, you get more of the butterscotchy sort of Werther's Original type flavour. So it's very interesting. You feel like you've got layers on the tongue. You can feel that roasty backbone of the beer. Then as you go above that, you've got the sort of treacle molasses sort of thing, these very thick, oily brown sugars. Then you've got a sweeter caramel sitting on top of that, and then as you go out from this layer, and remember you've got the dark layer underneath, as you go out from this very top layer out there, you start to get the kind of butterscotchy Werther's Original notes. You can feel a little bit of the vanilla. It's almost got a little bit of a vanilla kind of quality. That it reminds me of Thornton's like vanilla fudge actually, or Thornton's, you know, vanilla original toffee. It's a little bit like that. So it's got a toffee kind of fudge sweetness to it in the middle of the palate too, and you can feel. And you know, as you go further into the aftertaste, those fudgy toffee notes push their way out a little bit more, but in the back of the palate, the sort of more roasty, toasty, black malty kind of qualities come out. But the black malt in this one isn't overly harsh. Like I say, it's almost just a little bit, as I say, rubbery is a bit of a silly, unusual description for it, but it's very, very smooth. It's maybe a little bit like Carafa, if you think of the Carafa malt from Germany. It's a little bit like that kind of bread crusty type thing there. So yeah, that's an interesting point to make about this one actually. But yeah, I do like how this beer goes together. I have to admit, as I say, I've not reviewed too many pastry stouts, so I don't have too much that I can compare this to, but I'm surprised at how much of a roasty toasty backbone this beer has. And I guess, I don't know if that's maybe just to the Russian taste. I don't know if the Scandinavian pastry stouts are a little bit sweeter than this, right enough, but I'm surprised at how prominent the roasty elements of this beer are. But I like this, I really do. I think we've covered the malt base on this one quite in depth now. Let's move on to the hoppy side of things. So in the back corners of the palate, you do have a good little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the side of the palate, you can feel some of the bitterness from the earthiness just sticking there. There's a wee teeny bit of a floral quality on the front corners of the palate, and as you go round the front curve of the tongue, you get a little bit of that lighter sort of grassy type thing out of it. Then behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll out of the beer. And for me, this one, it's quite sharp in the beginning. You do get a little bit of that kind of plummy, raisiny sharpness in the beginning when you take this in. So yeah, when you take this beer in, it's really got a little bit of that plummy note to it, a little bit of a kind of raisiny sharpness, and you've also got some really nice kind of figgy elements to this beer. So the plummy, raisiny sharpness in the beginning, then it just rolls out. You get a bit of that kind of figgy quality blanketing sort of front third of your tongue, and as you go further into the flavour, you start to get a wee bit of a kind of candied strawberry out of it. You'll get a little bit of a kind of blackberry-ish, blackcurranty thing in there as well, but you can feel the roasty, toasty aspects of this beer, that sort of carafa type, well-fired bread crusty note that I was talking about. That really does push its way further forward on this one. So for me, as I say, I need to try some of these dessert in a can beers at some point, and just see what they're like from Amundsen. But this one for me, I'm surprised as a pastry stout. I'm surprised at how roasty and toasty it is, but it's well balanced and it's got a very nice flavour to it. I like the layers that the brown sugar has in this one. I think that's the sort of highlight of this beer for me. And in terms of being lactosey, I don't find it too lactosey in that sense, and it's maybe because of the prominence of the roasty elements actually. So I like how this one goes together. This has been a really interesting beer to review, and of course it's always cool to review some different Russian things, of course, too. So yeah, try this one for yourself and see what you think. In terms of the mouthfeel, definitely a full-bodied beer. I don't think there's much doubt about that. But yeah, the carbonation's very smooth. It's got a big sort of oily mouthfeel to it. The lactose doesn't make this one too creamy, definitely more oily. In terms of hoppy bitterness and things, it's quite... I'd say this one, I think this is maybe around a 60-ish, 70 IBU type beer, but you've got a little bit of that on the sides of the palate, and also a little bit of it from the malty side of things too. I still don't know whether you count bitterness from the malty side of things as part of the IBU, come to think of it. But I think we're talking about a 70 IBU beer. This one, it does have a good bit of bitterness to it. At the same time, the malt base has a lot of sweetness. As I say, you've got a layer of kind of roasty toastiness and then a lot of sweetness sitting on top of that, and it's not quite creamy, but it's got a very kind of smooth character to it as well. The fruits have got a lovely little bit of sharpness in the beginning, they get juicier later on. And as I say, around the edge of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of dryness to the beer as well. But overall, this is just a very, very nice beer. Another excellent Russian one, and I'm glad that I was able to review this for you here on the channel. So if you are watching from Russia, spasiba. Do let me know some other Russian beers that I can review and see what I can get hold of. That would be awesome. But I thank you guys all again for watching. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from AF Brew as well. As I say, give me some other Russian brewery recommendations, and yeah, try this one for yourself and just see how you go on. AF are a very capable brewery. They've got some very, very nice beers in my experience, and you know, the standard of Russian beer is really pretty damn high. So yeah, any chance you get to try some, I would highly recommend it. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media, check out AF Brew, and I will catch you guys later. This one was the Big Black Mash, a 10% butterscotch Imperial pastry stout, I guess you could call it, from AF Brew in St. Petersburg over in Russia. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Slanja, skol, na zdrowie, spasiba, thank you.